All right, let's go ahead and get started. Christ has risen. Truly, He has risen. This is my, I think, first time coming back after resurrection. And I missed you guys last week. You guys missed me?
Yeah.
All right. So we are on the fourth sacrament of the seven sacraments. If you guys are just joining us, we're in the midst of a class titled The Seven Sacraments of the Church. What are the first three that we've already looked at? Baptism. What's baptism about? Second birth. I like that. Okay. All right. What's the second one about? What is it? Confirmation. Confirmation. What is that about? The seal. The confirmation of your baptism. What did you guys learn about last week? Holy Communion. This is one of the sacraments we review in the 5 pillars, which we've mentioned. And then today we're here to talk about Holy Order. The famous Holy Order, of course, this day and age, you know the saying, everybody seems to be a deacon. But we're here to talk about why there are certain things as deacons, priests, bishops. We're here to talk about the importance of the Holy Order within the Ethiopian Order. Why do we need them? Why? Why are they important? Why are they here? And how do they relate to our spiritual life? So let's get to it. The sacrament of Holy Order is a sacrament by which the bishop or bishops lay their hands on a devoted and elected Christian. Not just anyone, but a devoted and elected. By the way, some of these things that we're going to talk about, you may not see it, and it may not be practiced, but this is how it should be done. The first one is, it's like the criteria to be a deacon is not to be a guy and a Christian. No. There's a list. We're going to talk about it. One of it is devoted. We're going to see what that means. How far is your devotion? What does devotion look like? And then it's elected. By the way, you have a say who becomes a deacon. You have a say. It's not just the bishop. You have a say. According to the tradition of the Orthodox Church, it's not even the Orthodox Church, it is the community that says this person has lived among us and they are right. They deserve to be a deacon. We want him to serve us. You have a say. So when the bishop comes and he's going to ask the congregation, should I elect him? And then you guys respond back saying, he is deserving of this position. Right? So, in order for us to be a deacon, a priest or a bishop, that means that we first live among people, live among the community, and show ourselves worthy of this position. We are tested in several positions, so we're going to look at that. Now, through this action of the bishop, the Holy Spirit, we believe in our faith, descends and grants the devoted Christian one of the ranks within the Holy Order. How many ranks are there? How many? You guys should know this. How many ranks are there?
4.
What? Okay. What are the 4? I want to hear it.
No, 5.
5 pillars. Yes. What are the 5? What are the 4? 3.5. What are they? Huh? Deacon, priest, bishop, do you guys agree?
No.
What about deacon? What about patriarch? Oh.
6.
That way. Okay, we'll see. Now, before we even talk about the patriarch, the bishops, the deacons, the priests, all the different, ranks in between, why do we need them? Why do we need them? Do we need them? You guys need this guy? You guys? Is he necessary?
Yes.
Why? We can do that together. So here's the thing. Yes, apostolic succession is obviously an important one. But outside of that, just think about logistic, right? So, in a land not that far away, because this is possible, imagine like they're hikers, right? Like they're just going. And I'm kind of making up the stories as I go along. And then like, let's say like some type of wild animal starts chasing them. And they're running, and they come to this fork road and they have to go to the left or right. And one is very narrow and it seems kind of difficult, but they can see ahead and it seems short. It's a short road. The other one is long, very comfortable. And they start debating, which way do we go? Which way do we go? Right? And they're like, it makes sense to take the shorter route. Yes, it's a little difficult, but we could go and we escape faster. The other one, like, no, this is comfortable. Come on, let's go this way. What are the people going to do? They're going to keep arguing until the wild animal comes, and what happens? They get attacked. But if there is somebody among them who's delegated to make a decision, they could say, let's take the scarier road or the longer route. A decision has been made, and what are the people going to do? They're going to follow it. It's not to say the person is always correct. At least, like the person to make it, it's not to say that they're always correct. It's to say that you need somebody in place to make a decision, whether you like it or not. Here's the thing, true story. I think I've shared this before. A few years ago, there was a campaign in the book of Romans, chapter 1. There's a verse that says, homosexuality is an abomination. And I forget what sector of a church it was. They don't have priests or synods. And the way that they decided, what happened is there were many people, especially in America, that said, we don't like this word, let's vote to take it out. This is true. So they came together and they said, let's have a conversation of whether or not we take this word out of the Bible. And it's no longer an abomination. And they came and they started like having conversations and they went out for a vote. And the only reason why it stayed in the Bible is because recently they went into Africa and evangelized a bunch of Africans. And these Africans, they said, nah, it's here. No. And they voted against it. And because of the Africans, the state, and a lot of the Americans, they were like, we should rethink this whole evangelism thing. This is true. I'm not making this up. But the point of the story is, the ability to change the Bible was in the hands of common people. And this results in division. Because if I don't like what you say, if you don't like what I say, I'll just go across the street and start my own church. You see how it works? The importance of having people delegated to these positions is it ensures unity. You can like them, you can dislike them, that's up to you. But there's someone in charge of making decisions. And we're not here to talk about how the church operates. But there's a way to deal with certain things. Is the system bulletproof? Is it perfect? No. But it ensures our unity. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta change it here too. Alright. So this sacrament is not offered to everyone. Who is it not offered to? A woman. Huh? Don't worry, we'll get to this. But it's not offered to every man either, right? So obviously you need to be male to receive this sacrament. Please, we're not having this conversation. Is this male? Don't do that. This is not the class for that. Must be elected to receive this sacrament. You must be elected. You must be elected. And in the Gospel of Luke chapter 16 verse 3 it says, in the morning he called his followers to him. He chose 12 of them and called them. What did he do? He chose 12 of them. He didn't like, a lot of the times, when I used to teach Sunday school, there's someone who told me they had a dream that they wanted to be a deacon and they have to be a deacon. That's not how it works. If you had that kind of dream, please go see somebody. You have to be chosen. You have to be chosen. And how are you chosen? In multiple ways. One of the ways that you're chosen is other people can see something and you, because of your services in itself, calls you towards these type of positions. But not everybody is supposed to be a deacon just because they're a man. That's not how it works. And the other thing to think about is the way, like, especially for guys, I'm speaking with guys, when you become really involved in the church, it doesn't mean that's a calling to be a deacon. Not everything, the way that you express the highest level of your spirituality is not by becoming a deacon. We all have gifts, they're different. Some of you should be deacons. Some of you should be deacons. But some of you should not be deacons. Why? Because your calling is just different. Different doesn't mean more important, it means different. One day, this kid, he walked into a stadium where there was an orchestra playing. And he was wowed. I don't know, he was from Qatar or something. He was like, wow, yeah. And he heard all this, like, you know, like the violin, the cello, and all this stuff coming together. He's like, oh. And then he said, I'm going to have an orchestra. Now, I'm going to be an orchestra. And then he goes, he's like, I want to buy orchestra. Huh? And that's how it works. And they're like, well, what you can do is you can buy like the instruments within the orchestra. So he's like, okay, give me a violin. And he saves up all this money, and he finally gets a violin. He practices for years and years and years, and he perfects the violin instrument. And he keeps playing, he's really good at it, but it doesn't sound like the orchestra. Why? Because that's one instrument. To have that like feeling behind the orchestra, you need everybody to come together. And everybody to play the instrument that they're good at. See? Now, in order for us to be the orchestra for God, to offer up the type of services, to offer up the type of worships that God will accept, we have to play our part. Our part will look different. It has to look different. It has to look different. So we're not all here to serve. We're not all here to be deacons, but some of us are. And those of us who are, just like there are some people who shouldn't seek out deaconhood, those of you who are elected to be deaconhood, you have to answer the call. You see how that works? John chapter 15, verse 16. You have not chosen me. I have chosen you. I have set you apart for the work of bringing in fruit. Your fruit should last. And whatever you ask the Father in my name, He'll give it to you. Who knows about deaconess? Diaconate. Huh? What about the woman? Here's the thing. In the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, there is a position for women to serve that's called diaconate. It's not like full level of deaconhood as we'll see. The deacons is like a position to get them ready for priesthood, and then after priesthood, you may either go into bishophood or priesthood or stay as a priest. We'll talk about that in a second. But for women, this position is available to assist the priest, especially in Qatar and all that stuff, for certain roles that the men just can't do. I'll give you guys examples as we keep going along. The rank of reenacting in church is not a priestly rank. So these women, diaconate, they can't be esawist. I don't know what the feminine is. But, you know, like it's just diaconate or that's it. Like there's no higher rank they can get. The ranks of deaconesses are similar to those of deacons in various traditions. So the consecration, which is done by a bishop, is performed without the laying of hands. So when diaconate, when we become ordained, the bishop lays his hand, we'll talk about this, on us. Or at least he's supposed to. But for diaconate, that is not done. The whole procession that's done for guys is not done for women. Why? Because it's not a priestly rank. And their role is, you know, to teach Sunday school and to gather women together and be the leader and all these things. But more importantly, for like, let's say baptism of adults, We're not talking about kids and adults. We talked about confirmation, right? And holy oil. There's different part of the body that the person has to be anointed. Now, if it's a female adult, and the priest is like, let's say, young man, you don't want to get him to look at certain things that he's not used to, right? So what would happen is his diaconate would come, and she would guide his finger. She can't touch anything, but he would kind of look away, and she would guide him to do whatever. And other type of services they may give is, let's say, a young girl is sick, and he needs to go there. Well, if it's a young priest, a young monk, so that he won't be prevented or tempted when he goes to a house alone, this diaconate could come with him, and she could accompany him. This diaconate, by the way, is supposed to be an older figure, usually they say 65 years old or older, to kind of assist the priest in situations, kind of acting like a mother role, right? But as you guys probably have noticed, it's not a practice we see commonly anymore in our society for various reasons. All right? But what I actually want to talk about is, why can't women become priests? We talked about diaconates, but why can't women be priests? This is a question I get all the time. What about the women? That's patriarchy, huh? It must be challenged. Hebrews chapter 5, verse 1, for every high priest taken from among men is appointed for men in things pertaining to God, that he may offer both gifts and sacrifices for sins. If there are any woke people in the room, please go back to sleep. Please. The feminist movement is anti-Christian. You've heard it here. I'll tell you. Listen, my children. The feminist movement is anti-African. Listen. I didn't say feminism is anti-Christian. I said the feminist movement is anti-Christian. The feminist movement is anti-African. The problem is, we just take up what the world has to take and give us, and we just swallow it up without looking deeper about what these movements are actually doing. When you look at a movement, look at what the purpose is. If you go and start reading known African women are authors, they're anti-feminism, anti-feminist movement. Because the premise of the feminist movement is promoting Anglo-American concepts of womanhood that have nothing to do with African societies. The known Kenyan author and feminist is recorded as saying, feminism is often seen as a threat to African culture and tradition, which places a high value on gender roles. When your kid, if there's like a 10-year-old kid running around and throwing stuff, what's the first thing you say? Whose kid is he? Whose kid is he? That's the first thing you ask. Where is his parents? The same way, if we get out of track, yes, it's our responsibility. Yes, we need to, be responsible for our spiritual life. But it's because as a father, a spiritual father, they'll be asked. The role of priesthood is not easy. When you're getting ready to answer that call, you have to be aware, what am I answering the call for? What am I called to do? As most of you guys may know, after the Vietnam War, when the soldiers came back, they were treated very poorly. Very poorly. If you guys remember. Or if you guys don't remember, if you guys read about it in school. Now, I always wondered, like, if you were around that time, you wanted to join the military, and you saw how the soldiers were being treated, what would be the natural response to this? I never want to join the military. Why? Because they're being treated so poorly. But this is even forget about the way they're being treated. The realities of war is so bad that whoever joins should know what they're getting themselves into. I worry, this day and age, a lot of young folks are getting into deaconhood because they see the glory of deaconhood. They get to sit with the priest and eat the better dorot. Right? They get to line up first, all this stuff. And for this reason, many young kids desire being a deacon. But being a deacon is tough, it's hard. Priesthood is hard, bishophood is hard. And we should get into it knowing all the responsibilities that it requires from us. Let's keep going. Within this rank, there are sub-ranks. So, as we said before, there are 3 ranks. 3. That's deaconhood, priesthood, and bishophood. 3. But within deaconhood, within priesthood, within bishophood, there are different ranks that you get elevated to. Now, a lot of these traditions, we may not see it in the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church. I believe the Coptic still holds these practices. I don't know to what degree, but there are all these ranks within deaconhood. I'm not going to try to pronounce them. But the ones that are probably noticeable are anagonistis, which is like the reader, the subdeacon, or the likadiakonat. You guys have heard these terms. In the Ethiopian tradition, we call, like, if the person who is like in charge of all the deacons at a particular church, we call him the likadiakon, generally speaking. But these are supposed to be specific ranks that you get as you go through your deaconhood, and I'll leave that there. Their responsibilities include lighting the church's lamps, maintaining the books of the church, prepare the censer, although they can't really perform the censer, and they're organized worshipers. This is the job, the duty of the deacons. They recite all the liturgical responses. They may be part of the Qadasi, as you guys know. They carry the chalice and gives the congregation the holy blood of Christ in Holy Communion. If there's one thing, people in here who may want to become a deacon, and you're like, okay, what's the one thing that scares me? You know what scares me? This thing, above everything else. The idea that during liturgy, you're holding the holy blood of Christ is a scary thought. It's a scary thought. And the question is, am I worthy to stand here and hold the holy blood of Christ? That's a huge responsibility. Huge responsibility. So, the things that should go through our minds, especially those of you who are trying to be a deacon, is ask yourself this question. Am I ready for this position? Other duties of a deacon include preaches when necessary. I guess it's necessary right now. He assists the priest in administering the sacraments. It's important, deacons cannot administer any sacraments. They can't baptize on their own. They can't perform holy matrimony. They can't do any of the sacraments. They're here to assist. They can't do any of the sacraments, right? This is why sometimes when I walk outside of the church, especially like mothers and stuff, they come and they say, "Asalame." By the way, what's the verb for asalame in English? There is none. Do this thing for me. I don't know. So I can't do that because I have no sultan, I have no authority, right? The priest does. So as a deacon, my responsibility is to assist the priest. Does that make sense? Deacon's responsibility is to assist the priest. All right, let's look at some of their qualifications. Likewise, deacons must be reverent, not double-tongued, not given too much wine, not greedy for money, holding the mystery of the faith with a pure conscience. But let these also first be tested. Well, first, let's talk about this first thing. So within the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo tradition, and this is a conversation we're going to have with deacons alone separately, but the question of virginity is always brought up, right? Deacons are supposed to be a virgin. Yes, pure. They're supposed to be pure. But that cannot be the only criteria for deaconhood. Like within the Ethiopian Orthodox, and I see this all the time, but he's not a virgin. Like he could lie, he can steal, He could be like the worst person on the planet. As long as he's a virgin, he's good to go. And we have this mentality, especially maybe not here, because I see some of you guys shaking your head. I hope you're shaking your head. But in our parents' tradition and just culturally, there is this idea that the only criteria is virginity. No. There are many things, there are many criteria here, including not drinking, not being double-tongued, not being greedy for money, holding the mystery of the faith. That means understanding orthodoxy. Those of you who want to be a deacon, make sure you understand what your faith is about. And then it says, but let these also first be tested. So you have to be tested. You have to be coming to your community and playing the role of deaconhood, although you're not actually practicing it, but getting yourself ready for this role. And then it says, then let them serve as deacons, being found blameless. So what this means is really doing the best that you can to serve that role. The responsibility of deaconhood is important. You have to understand other people are looking at you. You have to understand you're leading other folks, not just the people, general public, including your family. Maybe there are some deacons here. One of the first things you'll see, especially if you're a kid, you start acting up, the first thing they'll say, diakon does you know D. Translation, is this how a deacon acts? When you start acting up. Why? Because we are expected, not just in public, but even in our homes, to be an example for our loved ones. It says, likewise, their wives must be reverent, not slanderers, temperate, faithful in all things. Deacons, your position is not just to be a deacon and call it, but even how you select your wives should matter. I'm here to tell you, once you get married, your spiritual life will be affected, either for for positive or negative. It will be affected though. If you have a wife who supports you, grows with you, your spiritual life will strengthen. If you have a wife who doesn't, then your spiritual life will start declining. This is not a reason to provide an excuse. It's not my fault, my wife is not praying. This is an excuse to say, this is a reason to say, hey, I need to choose my wife carefully. It's not about her appearance only, or her money, or whatever it is criteria you have, but also look into the ability. Can she provide support in my services? Again, these are some of the classes we'll be talking to deacons alone, but we're talking about holy order. Let deacons be the husbands of one wife, ruling their children in their own houses well. By the way, it's not as obvious as we think having one wife. It's not as obvious. Especially, it's really not. Especially if you go to regions of Africa. There are many African societies that have multiple wives. There are many cultures that have multiple wives. But even here in America, the divorce rate is high. And just because you sign a paper saying I'm divorced, it doesn't mean God is like, oh, you're back to single. Do you see what I'm saying? And well, you can provide a list of things, good or bad, about why people are divorcing. But the point is, for a deacon, he's expected to stay with one wife. To the point where, if something happens, and his wife passes away, if he remarries, he loses his ability to serve as a deacon. He could either stay celibate and serve the church as a deacon, as a clergy, or he could remarry, and that's fine. He didn't do anything wrong, but that's just the responsibility. This office is calling you for a higher role. Like it's calling you to be like the model, right? The responsibility is high. It's really, really high. And a lot of people struggle with this idea. For those who have served well as deacons, obtain for themselves a good standing and great boldness in the faith which is in Christ Jesus. Let's go to this guy. He left because he knew what was coming. So, just like deaconhood, there's sub-ranks within priesthood. You could be a ace, you could be an archpriest. But again, there are promotional ranks. They're not like actual ranks, like from deaconhood to priesthood, right? Now, I'm going to clear up a lot of misconceptions. Listen to me carefully. When you are a deacon, you have a decision to make, a very important decision, which I just made a few months ago. You can either get married, or you can become a deacon, or you could become a monk. One of the two routes. Does that make sense? Either get married, or become a monk. Now, if you are married, when the time comes, you could be promoted to priesthood. But guess what? That's the highest level you can grow. You can't get higher. If you're a monk, you get promoted to priesthood, and if the time comes and you're being called for the service, you can grow to be a bishop. But look what we're learning, guys. Look what we're learning. He looks the same. He has the age of the day. He really has it. He looks exactly the same. Same barber and everything. So what was I saying? Marriage. Yeah, this is very important. So when you're a deacon, if you become a monk, you could be promoted and elevated to priesthood, and even to the point of bishophood. But if you are married, then you could be promoted only to priesthood. So there are two types of priests. Married priests, like I saw by, and monks, like Abba Filipos. A lot of the times, I don't know where this tradition came from, the monks are generally referred to as Abba Ekali. Generally, I don't know where that tradition came from. But what the people that we call Abba so-and-so, that generally means they are a priest. What do we call our bishops? What do we call them? Abuna. Do you guys know what we're going to do some guys. Do you guys know what Abuna means? What does it mean? Literally, our father. It means our father. It's interesting because Abba really means father. And then Abuna, no, you just, I don't know how that works. But like, just the tradition, I don't know where it came from. But generally speaking, Abba is reserved for monks who are not married. Casis Ekale is referred, like usually if you hear Casis, usually it's not. It means he's married, a married priest. But if you find like Abba Filipos, and you're like Casis Filipos, it's still correct. It's not wrong, but it's just not common. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right, good. The priest has a right to administer all the church sacraments except for the holy ordination. How many sacraments are there? How many can the deacon perform?
None.
0. The priest can perform 6 out of the 7. The only one he cannot perform is the holy order. But the other sacraments, all the sacraments we've looked at so far, he can perform them on his own, but he can't do holy order. The responsibilities include teaching, leading to the ways of righteousness, visiting his congregation, and really acting like the father of the community. Malachi chapter 2 verse 7 says, "For the lips of a priest should keep knowledge, and people should seek the law from his mouth, for he is the messenger of the Lord of hosts." I love when the Bible says things like should, right? What does the word should tell you? It's not really happening. But this is what it ought to be. You see? It should be this way. We should be seeking the law from his mouth. By the way, the reasons why priests are here is to guide us. A lot of the times, people make up their own religion. Even in Orthodoxy, they make up their own rules. And I just own the channel. I just fast the Great Lent. Did you consult someone? Did you talk to somebody? And it may be so. Like you can go to the priest and say, "Look, you know, I'm in this is where I'm at in my spiritual journey. I'm struggling with this. Can we come?" And the priest is playing the role of a doctor. He's there to tell you, yo, based on your spiritual life, I prescribe to you. If you want to grow in your spiritual life, I prescribe to you these things. It may be that the priest is like, okay, start without me. And maybe that may be the way. But his job is here to guide you along based on the level of your spiritual life. But some people make their own rules and recommendations. But we don't do that in well, some people do that with medical stuff, but you shouldn't. right? The doctor said I should take 2 pills, I'll take 6 of them. You know, like, you shouldn't be doing that. You should, or I just won't take the pills. Hey, we shut it down. You know, like, don't do that, right? Like, listen to the experts who are telling you certain things, and they're here to guide you, and trust that they're here for your benefit. They're not here against you. They're here to help you use them. Within bishophood, now we're moving on to bishophood, there are many ranks, and one of them happens to be patriarch. Now, when you guys hear patriarch, understand that he's still a bishop. You guys know who the patriarch of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church is? Who is it? Who is it? Abuna? Matthias. Who's the patriarch of the Coptic Church? I know you. Said that fast. Who's the one from the Coptic church? Who is it? Tawadros, right? I think you pronounce it. I'm not going to ask about the rest. So this is the rank that bishops can administer all seven of them, including holy order. Obviously, someone has to administer holy order, and the way that it happens, you guys heard the controversy recently, is the patriarch ought to be there. The patriarch should be there, and then him along with other bishops lay their hands, and they make somebody a bishop. The patriarch cannot be there. For whatever reason, the 3 bishops can stand there, lay their hands, and ordain somebody to a bishop. But that happens through the agreement of the Holy Synod, not just the way that we saw it a few months ago. Bishops are the only ones that are able to administer the sacrament. Patriarch, being the highest rank in the priesthood, has the greatest ruling, but his job, so here's the hierarchy. Deacons are supposed to gather all the congregation. The priests are responsible for the deacons. The bishops are responsible for the priests. Then the patriarch is responsible for gathering the bishops. And then the Holy Synod, which encompasses all the bishops collectively, is above the patriarch. And the Holy Spirit is in charge of administering the Holy Synod. Do you guys see how that works? Do you guys see how that works? So nobody's above. Well, this is just the ranking that we go under. Qualifications, I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But, you guys know who this is? You guys know? No? Abuna Apostles. He's the Bishop of Devreli Rams. I had the great privilege of meeting him, and he's the one who ordained me, so I had to include him. The qualification is a long list that I'm not going to spend too much time over because nobody here I don't think is going to be a bishop. That's not you, Cassie. Don't look at me. You've already been married, so. But there is one thing that I do want to talk about. Are bishops married? No. Are bishops married? Since your question depends on what tradition. There are traditions, and I forget which ones. There are bishops that are married. Actually, if you read 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 2 through 7, it says, a bishop then must be blameless, the husband of one wife. Uh-oh. What happened? What happened? Yes, sir. He raised his hand and turned around. All right, so what happened? What happened? Do we not follow the Bible? Mm-hmm. And we can say all this stuff, right? So, by the way, who is this? Who is this? You guys should know this one. Who said that? Good job, good job. Abuna Gorgorios. Abuna Gorgorios. He is, read about him, read about his life. He was, what year did he pass away? 1990s, early 90s, late 80s. He is the founder of Ziwai Gadar, and he is in charge of getting the youth together in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. If you guys heard of Mahabharata Kusan, a lot of the movement behind what happened, he kind of brought the people together. Our own father, Abba Philippos, learned under him, and it was at his Gadam that he became a monk. Really his life is just, for a lot of the priests that you see, a lot of the preachers, the older ones in Amharic, especially Amharic speaking, they are his fruit. It's because of him. So again, I had to, he has two books, right? Out about the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. If you read Amharic, it's a great work. If you read Amharic and you're a good English writer, here's a project for you translated. Because I think that the people can really benefit by reading what Abu Nogoro. He was way ahead of his time. That, I'm saying. So, the husband of one wife, what does it mean? So, this is not a requirement. It doesn't say he must have a wife. It says he should only have one wife, meaning he shouldn't have more. But it's not forbidden to have, to not be married. Of course, in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 8, it says, St. Paul says this, I say to the unmarried and to the widows, it is good for them if they remain even as I am. It's good if they remain unmarried. But if they cannot exercise self-control, let them marry, for it is better to marry than to burn with passion. So the whole thing that he's talking about here is falling to sexual temptation, right? So if you're being tempted, instead of falling for sin, it's better for you to get married, because marriage is holy, unmatchable. But it is better, what does it mean by better? For service. For service, it's better if you're single. Why? You don't have to worry about your family, your kids, your wife. You don't have to worry about, let's go on a family picnic, and I gotta take my son out, So as a bishop, you could just dedicate your time to the church. You could dedicate your time to the church 24/7. You don't have to worry about it, and that's all you do. And because of this and other factors that I won't get into right now, the church, through the Holy Synod's approval, began to say, in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, from now on, bishops will only be unmarried. Right? And this is kind of the power that the Holy Synodos has. Remember what we said in the beginning. There are people delegated to make decisions, and that is important. And the people that were delegated to make decisions made the decision that it is better for a bishop to be single so that he could administer and serve the church without any form of distraction around him. There's questions later. This part I'm going to go kind of quickly, because some of the things that we read and some of the things that we see may not be one-to-one, but some of the visible signs that we see is the deacon is supposed to, well, it depends, but in the Ethiopian tradition, some of the bishops will test your knowledge of deaconhood, depending, whether you're in Ethiopia, here, or whatever, it may change. But they'll ask you certain things that you're expected. Right now, in the Ethiopian tradition, there are certain prayers that you might be tested. They maybe ask you how to chant, Kadase, or something to that effect. And then if they feel like you've done a good job and you can perform these duties, then you will come, you'll be given a date, and then you will, again, it's different everywhere. You will kneel down, there's a prayer that's done. After the prayer, the bishop will lay his hands, and you'll be consecrated as a deacon. That day, I hope you guys talked about this last week. After every sacrament, what are you supposed to seal it with? After every sacrament. Holy Communion. Holy Communion. So after you get your deaconhood, you should, the tradition is that you seal it with Holy Communion and you do liturgy. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Very similar to the priest. Very similar to the priest. He will appear before the congregation, and some of the stuff that is kind of like, we don't see it in practice, although we ought to, is when the priest, especially the priests and the bishops, when they're about to be ordained, the bishop is supposed to come and ask the congregation, is he worthy? He's mastered the knowledge. He showed it, he passed the test, but is he, you guys want this guy? right? And then we say he doesn't. He is deserving. Yes, absolutely. We think he's fit for this role. And same thing with bishophood. Again, I don't want to go through these lists because yes, I can be bishops. But the last thing that I do want to talk about is the invisible sign. So, for all the ranks, we believe that the Holy Spirit descends and grants them the tools needed to accomplish their respective ranks of responsibility. We actually believe that the Holy Spirit is guiding the bishops. This does not mean, as human beings, they cannot mess up, but we have to respect the rank. You may not respect the person, you have to respect the rank. This is the thing that a lot of people struggle with, right? 1 Samuel, we encountered the life of King David. And King David is anointed to be the next king in charge. He's already given that promise. But Saul is still alive. And he begins to play the harp for Saul and serve Saul. Saul, who is the first king, is also anointed to be the king. And he's king, active in the duty. But suddenly, King Saul becomes jealous of King David. Well, he wasn't a king yet. He was just David, shepherd David. And he starts to chase him around. Saul wants to kill him. And eventually, David finds Saul sleeping. What does he do? What does David do? Yes. He cuts off a piece of his garment and he walks away. The next day when he wakes up, he shows him as proof. I have you gone, I could have killed you. I didn't. Why didn't he kill him? He had the opportunity. When an enemy comes, we know David has the power. He killed Goliath. We know that he will do it. Why did he kill him? Why kill Goliath and not Saul? What's the difference between the two? Saul was anointed. Saul is chosen by God, however wrong he may be. However much he's trying to chase him. However, whatever he's doing, he's anointed by God. And later on, in 2 Samuel, we see that Saul is killed in the battle. And this soldier that witnesses the whole thing comes to David and tells him, he lies. And he says, I killed Saul, thinking he was going to get a promotion. He didn't kill him, he just died on the bat. He actually killed himself, Saul. And here comes the soldier, I killed Saul, thinking he was going to get a promotion. David cries. He cries. You think this is something to glorify him? No, he's anointed by God. And this is the same thing we have to think about when we think about priests and deacons. However wrong they may be, you have to respect the rank and honor, especially some of us who are close to service and the way we talk about priests, which I myself have done. It's wrong. We should contain our mouth in the way that we talk about the office, respect for the office. Person could be wrong. That's all I got for today. Questions?